Hi, everyone. I'm Libby Hoffman, and I'm going to discuss three areas of work that I do and how I see the overlap personally, and why you might want to work with me on one of these areas. So, the first area is design consulting. This is pretty general. A lot of people ask me, well, what do you mean by design? And the easiest thing I can say is graphic design because people know it, they can see it, they can touch it. What I actually was trained in is user experience design, which is a new field. How do we make our technology actually serve our needs? So it's people who are studying psychology and studying design principles, and how do we make them work together? So I had a particular niche when I studied this. Rather than focus just on a website or an app, I really went deep into systems thinking. And I always had an interest in international development. And because I went to a school that had a huge international studies program, then I was able to really apply that niche of systems design, which is what are the different parts of this thing and how do we get them to work together, specifically to international development projects where the thing that we're trying to get to work together differently is not just people and resources, but actually not just parts of of a technological system, but people and resources and relationships. And in particular, how individuals connect with the community, which connect with the institution. And that might seem a bit big scale, but this also comes down to business design. This comes down to organizational design. This comes down to educational design. Wherever you have multiple actors, how do you get these actors, these audience members, these different people involved in relationship in a way that allows the system underway to thrive? So that is the first bucket. Um, and then at the core of this within design thinking, which is how to really get these parts working in a more creative and collaborative way. I spent a lot of time thinking about and getting to know the ins and outs of the kind of untouchable areas. So without directly studying psychology, I feel like I was starting to get into shadow work. Shadow work in psychology is the study of the area that's been least addressed. So, a lot of times in religion and spirituality and positive psychology, what we want to do is we want to look toward the light. We want to look toward the thing that's enlightening and enlivening. And that's fucking wonderful. And we should do that. And at the same time, what happens at that time is that we tend to begin to neglect this other part. There's this other part of what we're doing that feels like, because we have this looking up in the light, we want to be good, we want to be just, we want to be holy, then the parts of us that don't fit into that picture, they get swept to the side. And so what would happen when I was designing is people would say, I need this and I need this and I need this, and then I would begin to learn about the parts that they didn't want involved or that they wanted portrayed in a different way. So it began to shape the way that I listened. And I also began traveling through being a consultant, and then I became a little bit more intimate into people's lives rather than just doing a project where you're really far removed or layers away. Being close and being connected with humans, this side of me that already loved psychology felt very connected to the human heart and the human consciousness. And so that leads to the second area that I decided to pursue, which is what I'm in currently, which is love, sex, and relationship coaching. So with love, sex, and relationship coaching, you're really choosing from the stance that I'm looking at, you're really choosing to go into that dark and that shadow side. And you're still looking also at the desire, at what you want to see, at what the person's seeking toward. But you're also going to pay attention to these parts that potentially in other parts of your life you'd be told, okay, don't emphasize that. If you get angry as a person, if you get defensive as a person, if you stash and store and hide and move and place away. And so all this listening mindset that I developed by working with people in a visual design aspect or a marketing design aspect, where I'm trying to learn what's the key parts of their story and how do we emphasize it and how do we make it visual and how do we help people see the different parts working together so they can choose to fund this, right? All this listening work, then a new avenue is open for that to happen just on a much more personal and interpersonal level. And with love, sex, and relationships, yes, you're looking at relationship of one person to another person or multiple partners, but you're also really looking at the relationship of them to themselves. And if you've ever heard of something called internal family systems, the type of training I did is very close to this type of psychological training, which is that the same way you when you would want to work with a family dynamic, you'd want to pull apart the ways that the family currently interacts so that you could get to know what each person in the family is really seeking and desiring and help them engage more harmoniously. That in within us, we also have almost like a family within us where there's multiple parts in connection and in conversation. And we want to actually start to elevate and uplift this conversation. And then also because I'm pursuing this from a embodiment standpoint, we're not just going to look at those parts from a cognitive level, from talking at them, but we're really going to drop deep into the body and listen to how they connect. So the third area that I am working on is, and I would love to serve you in, is something that takes a little bit of both of these niches and puts them together. And that's the field of digital wellness. So digital wellness right now, if you look up that term, it's usually an app on a phone. It's maybe Google or Apple letting you know, hey, you've spent 3 hours on your screen today. But digital wellness for me, and in the field that I believe is emerging here, and I'd really like to help lead and really funnel, is it's connecting that consciousness within the design space. So how was this designed? How was this app designed? How is this phone designed? What are its skills? What is it great at, right? How do I take the best of what this intelligence has, which is constantly changing every single year, right? How do I take the best of this intelligence? And then let's look at the relationship side. How do I take the best of my intelligence? How do I really begin to encounter my spirit and my desire and my goals and my desire to connect, really? And how do I pair these two in a way where the best of both of them is allowing and creating my evolution and my growth? Because what we're seeing as a world is we're seeing these beautiful, exquisite designs, and they're doing really the opposite of what we're intending in some ways. They're connecting us in some levels, and then they're actually deeply disconnecting us on others. And that's in part because of the agendas of some of the companies involved and some of the lack of regulation. But this is also a product of us not yet knowing just the great capacity of our own human consciousness. And so it's very tempting when we have something beautiful and expensive in front of us to really value that thing. And really what's within us is human consciousness, which is completely priceless, right? Is our own breath, is our own being. And there's absolutely no price on that. And yet our educational systems have really tapped us out of listening to the body, listening to who we are. And few people are maybe asking us deeply what we really want and giving us space for those desires to emerge. And so many people are being faced right now with this, this mental health crisis, which is already going on based off of other social things that are happening in this time in history. But as well as just the allowance of these things to be named and worked upon and addressed. But at the same time, there's also this like accentuating of mental and conscious issues that are already happening and some of being accentuated within the digital world. Because if you are not aware of your own consciousness and then you're stepping into a place that really multiplies, it's like a room of mirrors, whatever you're coming in with, then if you already had financial struggles, you're going to get into the digital environment and that's going to be propelled. If you already had insecurity and self-esteem issues, you're going to get into the digital environment and that's going to be propelled forward because it already takes such a great level of awareness and intention and courage and faith to pursue one's own consciousness and felt being. And the effort that it takes to be engaged in the digital world is very, very little. And the tools are very, very strong and very well designed. And so part of the reason that I actually even stepped out of pursuing user experience design as a degree was not wanting it to work for these companies at a time when there's so much that's not determined, and really personally choosing to spend 6 years really on pursuing religion, spirituality, community building, social development, human evolution on multiple levels. So that's really at the heart of what my own offering is, my own inspiration is that I've spent a lot of time working, or at least 6 years, maybe not a lot of time, but I have it deliberately from the age of 22 set out on a kind of personal freelance journey, and then really on my own mental health journey after the loss of a brother to suicide, um, to investigate the power and the potential of a human being. And that journey has led to a perspective of both individual expansion and community and collective expansion. And so, what I'm bringing to the table, whether I'm working to advance your organization's goals and this larger design thinking perspective, which is really wanting to take the skills and ideas that you and your team already have and accentuate them, or whether I want to work with you and your partner or your own being on expanding the love in your life, or whether I want to work with you as an individual on expanding your own power, your own knowledge of yourself, and your own relationship to the intelligence that sits in your pocket. All of these things I'm bringing to the table a perspective of your power, your radiance, your potential, and also really a fearlessness to enter into some of the darker, some of the more challenging places. Really sit with you in the conversations of where it's hard rather than there being an explicit, clean, easy answer to get around. I really want to be with you in those places that are messy, that are confusing. My work, if you can imagine, and navigating these different places has been messy, has been confusing, and it's where I'm at in my journey now to understand that willingness to sit with the hard questions is what is the thing that's crafting my personal career, rather than this assumption that I know exactly what to do. I'm here to uplift, be a pillar of your own power, a mirror reflection of that, at times a visual creator for that, and at times a coach and an inspirational figure for you to really ground into you, your partnership, your organizational needs. I want to see you shine in this world. And at this time in my life, check back in a couple of years, we'll see which one I focus on. But I really feel that each of these three areas for me accent one another. I really don't desire to work on the individual without looking at um your capacity for love and relationship to others. And it's also really would be a letdown for me to work on the institutional and social issues without working on increasing our capacity for love, for relationship, and for really fulfilling these deep personal desires that we've each been given and shown to center in the short life that we have. So please feel free to reach out to me on any one of these things. I'm happy to work from a center, from an internal place and move outward, or an outer place of the more career oriented place you are and move inward. I'm happy to work with you on just a single one of these issues. And I'm still in process of setting up exactly what this looks like, but I'm available for things that work in the multiple of 3. So 3 weeks, 6 weeks, 9 weeks, 12 weeks, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months would basically be the 2 options here. Thank you so much. And you can visit my website, lib-hoff.com, to find out more.